In 1967, the senior author examined prehistoric teeth in the human skeletal collections at the Museum of Northern Arizona as part of a worldwide study of dental morphology. One set of bones and teeth was severely broken and damaged. The remains had been excavated by Alan P. Olson and Associates in 1964 at an isolated location on Palaca Wash, downstream and out of sight of the present-day Hopi Mesa Top villages in northwestern Arizona. Danton 1965, Olson 1966. The Palaca Wash bones were well preserved, rather like those from dry caves, yet the site was located in the open. The good preservation hinted at an age much more recent than the Pueblo III date, AD 1100 to 1300, suggested by Olson. He interpreted the remains as a prehistoric secondary and ceremonial mass burial without any signs of violence. In these bones, however, there were scores of breaks that looked like those in the bones of a violently battered victim found in the Oakland Hills of Northern California that the senior author had analyzed for police a few years earlier. Some of the Paloca wash bones were burned too, although the assemblage looked strikingly like the bone refuge of game animals found in many archaeological trash deposits. The severely broken but well-preserved condition of the hundreds of Palaca wash human bones, teeth, and skeletal fragments were too remarkable to ignore. The series was borrowed and taken to Arizona State University, where the senior author and Nancy T. Morris, then a graduate student in physical anthropology, studied it over the course of a year. Because this was the first analysis of human bone damage and modification in the Southwest, we, Turner and Morris, had no existing procedure to follow and did a great deal of improvising. The first order of business was to inventory and the assemblage so that some plan of quantified characterization could be developed. This inventory eventually included counts of green bone breakage, cut marks, burning, bone preservation, and animal chewing and gnawing. Bone element counts suggested that at least 30 people were represented in the assemblage, almost half of them 18 years or older. Because of the severe breakage and total disarticulation, sex identification was difficult. Out of a minimum of 30 individuals, only 3 females and 1 male were tentatively recognized. In searching for ways to explain the Palaca Wash mass burial, we followed several lines of inquiry. An ethnographic survey of Pueblo hunting parties and other groups away from a village produced nothing like the Palaca Wash demography. We searched for surface remains of dead animals in the Hopi area, which we examined on the spot for types of damage, weathering, scatter, and completeness to see how well they matched the Palaca Wash mass burial. Because of the lack of associated cultural items that could be dated, we had a direct radiocarbon assay made up on the sample of ribs. It produced a historic date of AD 1580 plus or minus 95. In the end, we hypothesized that these people had been captives who, according to legend, were killed in historic times after a Hopi attack on a large town called Awatavi. Although we were unaware of the term at the time, we had performed a taphonic analysis. That is, we had attempted to explain how the assemblage was deposited and damaged after death. We concluded that most of the damage had been done by humans. The archaeological context was minimal. A simple, isolated bone pile near the dry Palaca Wash, miles from the nearest Hopi village. But this was exactly the context and location that fit the legendary killing of Awatavi captives following the town's destruction by other Hopi Indians. Fuchs, 1930, 1839, 93, 1893. Nancy Morris delivered the Palaka Wash report at the 1969 meeting of the Society for American Archaeology in Santa Fe. The large meeting room was packed. Because of the methodological approach was so novel, and the interpretation of violence and cannibalism was so contrary to prevailing concepts of the peaceful Pueblo Indians, few archaeologists in the audience voiced acceptance. One who did was Alan P. Brew. Brew had excavated human remains that year from the flood of a pit house dating about 8950 on Burnt Mesa in northwestern New Mexico. He thought the Burnt Mesa human remains had been damaged in the same way as the Palaka Wash assemblage. Subsequently, Brew examined the Burnt Mesa series with Flynn and the senior author using the Palaka Wash procedures, but with refinements and additions. Again, the bone damage clearly pointed to a depositional situation that was chaotic, disordered, and not a result of environmental processes. By exclusion, the cannibalism interpretation was reached again, Flynn, Turner, and Brew, 1976. The 11-person Burnt Mesa assemblage had the added advantage of being in an archaeological context that enabled Brew to suggest that the cannibalism occurred during a time of stress. This lent support to an emergency cannibalism hypothesis. In retrospect, the Palaka Wash and Burnt Mesa studies were flawed in both method and theology. First, observation was limited to macroscopic damage, that which could be seen with the unaided eye. The possibility of routinely finding slighter damage was not considered, although polishing marks were observed on Burnt Mesa bones. They were not recorded in a systematic fashion. It was not until 1982, Turner, 1983, that we, Turner and Turner, began routine microscopic examination with at least a 10-power hand lens for each piece and surface of bone in a mass burial. Thus, only in later studies and reanalysis did we look systematically for tiny anvil or hammerstone abrasions and polished surfaces.